Fox Oldies, 98.9, 105.3, WGNY FM in New York. I'm Bobo on a fun day Saturday morning, and a special guest, and a great one, too, at that. It's Megan, our elder care attorney. Megan, good morning to you.
Good morning. How are you?
Oh, a lot better than I was a week ago.
Oh, boy. Were you sick?
Oh, yeah.
It's going around.
Yes, and now my wife has it.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I told her, never tell me I never gave you anything. But she didn't. Nah, she didn't laugh at that, though.
I bet.
She gave me a grizzly bear look. You know? Hey,
Yeah.
Megan,
Yep.
I'll tell you what, before we start with our little segment of planning ahead, how about giving us all your contact information?
Absolutely. So my name is Megan Conroy. I'm a partner at Blustein, Shapiro, Frank, and Barone. We're located primarily in Goshen, and our phone number at the office is going to be 845-291-0011. We also have a really good website, lots of information to check out on that website. It's going to be www.mid-hudsonlaw.com.
All right. And, of course, you do have a workshop coming up pretty soon, don't you?
Yeah. Well, soon is relative. So I'm doing them every other month at this point, and they're free. They're available to the public, and for the most part, they're going to be in person. So the next workshop is scheduled for May 21st. That is a Thursday. They're all held in person at my office in Goshen, and they all start at 3 p.m. So if anyone wants to sign up for the workshop, they can do that online or call us at the office at 845-291-0011, and then you can RSVP there.
All right, Megan, it's always great having you here, and you give such great advice, too. You're absolutely awesome. So,
thank you.
Subject matter for planning ahead this morning is going to be what?
We're going to talk about how important it is to plan for what you want to happen to your body, your remains, after you pass away. And that's called the disposition of remains. And it is something, believe it or not, that you can pre-plan. And I encourage everyone to consider doing that.
Oh, wow. Okay. So that's extremely important then, isn't it, on the last will and testament?
Yeah, I think so. Typically, you can include a provision in your will, but in New York State and a lot of other states, there's actually a separate document that we like to use. It's called a Disposition of Remains form, and that form is dictated to us by state statute. There's certain signing requirements that are very similar to a will. But the reason we like that document more than including the provision directly in your will is that it's accessible faster. Your will is only useful once it really goes through the probate proceeding, which most people are trying to avoid because it takes so long to get through that proceeding. So if your family needs to wait for the will to be probated in order to figure out what to do with your body, they're going to be waiting way too long, and you're going to be stinking up the place. So we're going to rely on the Disposition of Remains form so that your family has access to that information a lot faster.
Well, because I'm the last surviving member of my immediate family, I was put in a position like that where my brother wanted a open coffin for 2 days, and then after that, he wanted to be cremated. So he had a viewing at a funeral home, and then after that, he was to be cremated. But the director of the funeral home called me. Now, he was in New Jersey. He called me, and I had to sign papers given permission for my brother to be cremated now.
Yes.
Now, that's
exactly right.
And I never had to do anything like that before. And it was, a little nerve-wracking for me to do that because I knew what I was signing. And then, of course, it had to be mailed back to them.
Yeah, and it's a tough thing. So, I'm sure a lot of people have had a similar experience. And then there are many people who have not yet experienced that. And it's really tough to do in a time where you just lost someone that's special to you, which is why I try to encourage my clients to pre-plan most of these affairs. Certainly, it's still going to require some signatures by the family members, but at least you knew what your brother wanted, right? You at least did not have to make that tough decision and plan that out. So he took a lot of the burden off of you by saying, this is what I want. Hopefully that gave you some peace of mind that when you are signing that difficult paperwork, you know this is what he selected and you're not making a decision that you're not sure about.
Oh, absolutely. He even had the time and, the times, I should say, for a viewing at the funeral home where he got placed. And also with everything that he wanted. Yeah, no, he went over this with a fine-tooth comb with his attorneys.
Yeah, which is excellent. And that's what I hope that most people do. I understand there's some expense to that, and that's going to be an expense that gets paid either way. So I think it's going to be better if people sort of take the reins and prepare for that in advance and make it as easy as your brother did on you. Because like I said, and as you can imagine, having lived through it, when someone loses their family member, often a parent, sometimes a sibling, heaven forbid a child, things like that, they're grieving. And these are the last kinds of decisions that they want to be forced to make, right? They want to just be able to think about their loved one and their lifetime, not planning these kinds of arrangements. And there's a lot that goes into it. It's almost like planning a wedding, but the morbid version, right? There's a lot of things, all the way from what the person is going to wear, particularly during the viewings or the wake. What kinds of things go with them? Is there jewelry or special items that should be included? Music decisions, flower decisions, casket decisions. There are so many decisions. And the professionals in the industry, right, the people at the funeral home, they know, and they're usually really great about guiding the loved ones and making these kinds of decisions, but it's still something that I think if you're put in that position, you would prefer to avoid.
Well,
also,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I went through it so many times with my mother, my father, my sister, and then my brother. And the funeral home, of course, that was used was the same one for all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And they knew
and that's very typical.
Yep,
Mm-hmm.
and they knew exactly what to do. My brother even picked out his own suit of clothes.
Sure. That's great of him. It's a sad thing to think about for yourself, right? But at least you didn't have to try to think of that.
Oh, yeah. And, the person that is still alive, obviously, at the time, doesn't even really want to think about this, but they really should, shouldn't they, Megan?
Yeah, I think they should. Not only is it helpful to their family members and their loved ones, but it can save on expenses, and it can allow them to plan their estate plan with a little more accuracy. So what I sometimes see when I'm meeting with my clients, and not that they're thinking they're going to prepay or pre-plan for any of this, but they say to me, I want to make sure my family has immediate access to cash because I'm worried about the funeral and the wake and the burial and all of these pieces. And sometimes it means that there's going to be one or two assets that is sort of floating around out there. It's not really well connected to the plan because they're so concerned about having immediate access to these funds. When really, if they pre-plan these arrangements and even prepay for a lot of it, there's that much less of a financial burden that they have to consider. So I think it works better with their estate plan if they take the steps to pre-plan and prepay.
Well, my brother did that too. He prepaid for everything, the funeral home and his cremation. He took care of everything. Crossed all the T's and dotted all the I's.
That's very generous of him because not only financially, but it takes a huge burden off of you, who he left behind.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Funerals alone can cost just as much as I do in excess of $10,000 or more.
Absolutely. Yeah. I tried to look up what some of the average costs are going to be for the different options, and we'll talk a little bit today about those different options, but I would say it looks to be, in our area, the average is maybe somewhere between $12,000 and $15,000 for your traditional burial with a funeral service. And obviously it can be more than that, depending on how extravagant the planning is, or maybe there are some cost-saving options, but I would think that's probably going to be the average for something like that.
Now, the average individual that comes walking in to a law firm's office and sits down with his or her attorney, and something like this is suggested, do you find the average individual not wanting to talk about this, or are they willing to go ahead and speak about this?
Sure. I would say it usually runs in two directions. Because they're meeting with me, that usually indicates that they're at least willing to have the conversation. So where I find that they are when we talk about this particular topic is they already know exactly what they want. Maybe they've already even taken some steps to pre-plan, prepay. But if not, they can at least verbalize to me what their wishes are. So those are the people that have considered this already, very comfortable discussing it, and they know it's important to get their wishes in writing. Then the other end of the spectrum is actually not an unwillingness to discuss it. It's more they hadn't even considered it. This has not been something that crossed their mind at all. They're so worried about planning for their kids and asset protection and how to coordinate assets that they hadn't even considered what's going to happen to them physically at that time. And so sometimes at the initial conversation, when I mention this topic, they say, oh, wow, I really didn't even think about this. I'm going to need some time to think about it and get back to you. And what's even more interesting is that there are a lot of options for what can happen to your body after you pass away. So it's not just burial or cremation anymore, and those would normally be, I think, the most common selections. And by the way, more and more people are selecting cremation, but it's not just burial and cremation anymore. You have traditional burial and green burial now available in New York and many other states. You have cremation. Also, there's something called water cremation, which I don't think is available in New York yet, but is becoming more popular. And it's a way of decomposing the body using water and chemicals, and the result is something similar to ashes from a fire, but it's essentially ashes from water, and so they call it water cremation. There's also human composting available in New York, and then from there you can talk about entombment, whether it's a niche for your cremated remains or a mausoleum for your full body. And then a totally separate thing is donation of your body to science or for research. So a lot of times when people either have thought about this or have not given this any consideration, in both instances, they are surprised to find out there are so many options to choose from that maybe will make someone feel a little more comfortable looking into this.
You know, a couple of strange things have happened to me in my career. And this is crazy. There was an old guy that would call me up almost every day when I was doing mornings on another radio station. And he was a very, very nice guy. Well, he stopped calling. Later on, the general manager gave me a phone call and told me to look in the paper. The guy wanted me in his obituary.
Oh, wow.
That's very, very true, and I'll never forget it. And I still have the article where he said, I loved listening to Bobo's morning show every morning on such and such a radio station.
Oh, wow. That's incredible. That's really special. Like you said, it's a little unusual, but I think that for a lot of people, right, you are in their house and they listen to you daily and they feel a connection to you, and maybe, something more like a personal friendship, having listen to you and even this gentleman talking to you on a regular basis.
Yeah.
I think that's really nice that he's considered including you in his obituary. That's really special.
Yeah, he would call me up almost every day, and we'd chit-chat on the phone for a few minutes. And
Wow.
his daughter called me, too, when I happened to have mentioned that on the air, because I did, in a salute to him, saying that I'm going to miss him. And something else that happened to me, too. When I was on a country station, wait till you hear this, in Pennsylvania, there was a client that advertised exclusively on my show. And he was a farmer. He had an egg farm, him and his wife, and she would sell her homemade pies, and you could get eggs there, corn on the cob, all kinds of fresh vegetables. Well, one day, and this is brutal, one day he was walking across a busy road to go to his mailbox. Excuse me, I had to cough. And he got run over by a tractor trailer.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, and of course he was killed. So listen to this. So I come to find out through his wife that he wanted to be cremated and his ashes be put back in his garden and to be turned up in the garden. How about that?
Is it a flower garden or a vegetable garden?
No, a vegetable garden.
Ooh, I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah, but seriously, that's what was done. Of course, there was special permission granted by the township and the state, but
Sure.
it was allowed to be done. So a couple of really weird things.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, and as you live, right, and you go through life, you start to experience these odd things, and you encounter a lot of people, especially in your profession and my profession, you encounter a lot of people, and you hear about what their choices are, certainly after they pass away or even sometimes beforehand. I had a very young client who I met with over the last several months, and she finally signed her planning documents just yesterday. But what she indicated to me, and I had never heard of this before, is that should she pass away, she wants her remains to be cremated. So she's choosing cremation. But she looked into this, and she found that one of the options for her cremated remains, her ashes, would be to use them to create a memorial reef. So in the ocean, marine life could sustain their lives from her ashes. And so there's a service that uses her ashes to create a memorial reef when she passes away.
Wow.
I had never seen that option before, but it's very unique, and I think it's a really nice way to honor something that she's passionate about and interested in, which was the earth and the environment and the marine life. So there's a lot of unique things you can do.
There was one thing you mentioned earlier in our conversation. What is a green burial?
Sure. So traditional burial now, with science and sort of things progressing in the way they have, we've learned how to preserve bodies so that they can stay longer during the viewings and the wakes and things like that. And typically it involves chemicals also for the caskets to make them more beautiful or more sturdy. There's a lot of chemicals involved in that. And even in the burial process, there's a lot of things that they'll do to the ground and to the grave site in order to make sure that it's stable and sturdy for the body to be placed in. And a green burial kind of gets away from all of that and sort of goes back to our roots as humans. So there's no chemical processing of the body. And then if there's a casket used at all, it is one that is very natural, maybe a pure wood that hasn't been treated, that is easily biodegradable. And then even for the grave site, my understanding is that they try not to put any kind of cement or liner or anything in the ground. So it's as much as possible, it is your body going into the ground to decompose naturally without the use of any chemicals or processes or anything like that.
Wow, that's very, very interesting. I didn't even know there was such a thing.
Yeah, and it's obviously it's been around since the beginning of time, but because we're sort of trying to get back to this and consider the effects on the earth and on people. I think this is something that they're trying to bring back in a way that's still useful and effective for us in the kind of population that we have. So this is a newer option that's available in New York. And what that means is that there are only certain cemeteries and facilities that will offer this as an option, but they're becoming more available and more popular. And that's a good thing because when they're more available, it means that we're able to keep costs lower. Something like the human composting option that I mentioned, this is available in New York, but there aren't that many facilities that do it. So while it's still a fairly affordable option, I think it's going to cost you less than a traditional burial would. There's some expense in the transporting of the body to the facility because there aren't that many facilities nearby that handle that processing. So when that becomes even more available, it's going to become even more affordable.
Boy, you weren't kidding where an individual has a lot of options at their disposal, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that this is, like we started saying, it's a good thing to pre-plan because you don't want to overburden your family with these options. And it's nice because you can select something that's really interesting to you. Like I said, that young woman, she said, I'm going to choose cremation, which is fairly traditional, but I want my remains to go into this memorial reef. And I think as people start to look into this topic in the effort to pre-plan and prepay for it, they might find that there's some options that really give them peace of mind, that they can really relate to as opposed to a traditional burial. I get a lot of people who say to me, oh my goodness, burial is scary to me because I'm claustrophobic. I'll be in the ground or I don't want to be eaten by bugs, and so they really start to think about this and they don't realize there are so many other options available.
Not to sound too morbid, but I'll tell you something that I was put through. It was with my dad. Now, he had a military funeral. My dad was cremated a few days later. And, of course, there was the funeral. My father's distinct wishes were to be that he gets his ashes spread on the top of Reddish Knob. Now, that you probably never heard of before. Reddish Knob, Reddish Knob is the highest point in the Shenandoah Mountains.
Okay.
Yep. And there was a dirt road that took you up there. And it was state property where you could park and look at a beautiful view. Well, this certain view overlooked his 111-acre farm he had in West Virginia. And he wanted his ashes spread over the edge of Reddish Knob. Well, guess who got that job?
Oh, no.
Me, yeah. Now, I've never held an urn before, and that's something I never did before. Sure. Well, I'll tell you what, if I didn't cry my eyes out for that man after I did that, I'll tell you, I don't know what I did. But
yeah, it's very emotional.
Yeah, and it overlooked his farm. And here I am standing on the edge of a mountain and looking straight down. It had to be a 1,000, 2,000-foot drop.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I've been through some stuff, and there are just so many options out there that people really need to start thinking about and what they want done.
Absolutely. So the sort of last component of this is not only are you benefiting your family members, your loved ones, by pre-planning, but in a lot of ways you can avoid an argument, right? So I don't know if you've lived through this, but typically when you have many family members involved in the planning of someone's final services, the wake, the funeral, etc., there can be disagreements about how to best honor their loved one. And, it can be fighting over which casket. There's something that's beautiful but very expensive that one person wants, and someone else wants something that's more affordable, or mom and dad wouldn't have wanted that. And so this can lead to family fighting. And I think the sort of last thing about this is going to be just to avoid fighting, which is a lot of times the goal for people to do estate planning, is that the person just go ahead and plan it all themselves beforehand. And that way there's really no discussion amongst the children or other family members. It is what it is. It's already in writing. And so, like you said, then the family can just focus on the emotional aspect of carrying out the wishes, of remembering their loved one, and it doesn't give them the opportunity to dispute over, what kinds of maybe more materialistic things that go into this.
Well, you just reminded me of something. My father told my sister and myself what he wanted done with his ashes. However, my brother thought it would be more appropriate to put him in Arlington Cemetery. And that created a little bit of a problem.
Sure.
So that's how that can go. But
exactly right. And if you put this writing in your disposition of remains form,
right,
it gives you the opportunity to not only say, I want my ashes to be spread in this way or whatever the wishes are, but who will carry out those instructions. So if you are nervous that there might be some infighting or might be one or two people who would not be willing to follow your wishes, maybe you've picked something a little unique and your family member doesn't agree with it, you can make sure that you're selecting a person who you trust to carry out those wishes. And that makes it easier because then the funeral home, the director, whoever's providing those services at that time, they have a paper that says who they should listen to. Because if they're getting phone calls from 5 different family members giving them different directions, they may not know what to do and everything is now on hold. If they have a document in front of them that's signed appropriately with the state statute, they now know who they should be listening to.
Absolutely. So as you can tell, I went through a few of those things from one extreme to another, pretty much primarily. But Megan, please give out your contact information again.
Absolutely. So the phone number for us at Blustein, Shapiro, Frank, and Barone is 845-291-0011, and our website is www.mid-hudsonlaw.com, and that's where you can find our workshops and sign up for them online.
Megan, you are definitely our mega attorney. Believe me, you really are. Now, you're going to be having a workshop come up pretty soon. How about some more information about that?
Absolutely. So the next one that's scheduled is on May 21st. It's in our office in Goshen. It starts at 3 o'clock. Those workshops are like all the basic information about estate planning, everything that people kind of want to know before they jump into meeting with an attorney. It's completely free and available to the public, but because it's in person, seating is limited, so you have to RSVP for it in advance so we can make sure we have room for you. So you can do that by calling or going to our website, and that next one is on May 21st.
And you get filled up pretty quickly, don't you?
We do. We fill up very fast. There's a room for about 20 to 22 people, which is pretty sizable. But because it's purely informative and it has a lot of information that I think sometimes people try to look up online and then feel overwhelmed, they feel like if they just come to the source, they hear it from an attorney, they'll be better off. And I tend to agree with that. I'm going to tell you the facts and nothing else. I think it's really awesome of your firm to do that. Thank you.
I really do. It's a service that really needs to be done. It really, really, truly does. And people get informed of things that they really need to know. Just like our Planning Ahead segment today. That was very interesting information.
Thank you. And I'm happy to meet with you and do these segments. I love to do the workshops. I love to chat with you. You make this so easy, and I really appreciate it.
Oh, Megan, it's my pleasure, believe me. And you are an awesome attorney, and so is your law firm. that you are part of a partnership with, correct?
That's right. Yep, I'm a partner at the firm.
I think that is great. Your contact information one more time, Megan.
845-291-0011 is the best number to reach us on, and the website is www.mid-hudsonlaw.com.
Well, I hope you enjoy your weekend, Megan. I know you will, and recover quickly from that nasty cold.
Thanks, Bobo. Have a good one.
You too, honey. Bye-bye. There she goes. She is just an awesome attorney, and personally, I highly recommend them. Believe me. I do have more of the greatest music ever recorded on the way next, right here on Fox Oldies, 98.9, 105.3 WGNY FM.